ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 1:01. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming in on this rainy day. At least it's a little bit warmer today. We will start off by introduction of commissioners. And we'll just go around.
We'll use it as roll call?
Yes, let's do that. Let's call roll, please.
Do you want to call roll or do you want them to use it as roll?
Use it as roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, okay, I apologize. Melinda Front, Director, Department of Rehab Services.
Jason Hicks, District Attorney, 6th District, which Caddo, Brady, Stevens, and Jefferson counties.
I'm there, and I'm the Executive Director for CASA Western Oklahoma, 5 counties out there.
I'm Ellen Lorenz. I work for OCCY in the Office of Planning and Coordination.
I'm Ellen Bittner, CEO of the Oklahoma Health Care Authority.
Jeffrey Cartmel, Executive Director of the Office of Juvenile Affairs.
Keith Reed, Commissioner of Health at Oklahoma State Department of Health.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Laird. I was appointed by Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat as an individual with an express interest in improving child serving systems that is not employed by the state of Oklahoma. I am currently unemployed, but I start Monday with the Oklahoma City Community Foundation as the Vice President of Philanthropic Services. 6 years. No, I'm late. Sorry. I'm Kaylee Kurth. I am a foster parent representing the PAR board from Weatherford.
My turn. So I'm Commissioner Harrington. I'm Jennery. I'm a CEO for Marlins Place. I am representing children and youth and residential and foster care.
I'm John Schneider with Youth and Family Services in El Reno, here representing the Oklahoma Association of Youth Services. And I know we have a couple of other commissioners with us virtually. If you'd like to introduce yourself for our role.
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Commissioner Jonathan Hall, and I am the president of Warburton Capital, a wealth management firm in Tulsa, and I was appointed by the governor to serve on the commission representing business or industry.
My name is Brenda Myers. I am the director of the Comanche County Juvenile Bureau and the Comanche County Juvenile Detention Center, and I represent the Metropolitan Juvenile Bureaus.
Commissioner Wilson. Okay. Is he on? Yes. Commissioner Wilson, can you hear us?
We'll be on camera.
Okay. We will go back. Do we have quorum?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I also understand Judge Warren couldn't get to be here today, but he also plans to watch virtually. So thank you, Judge, for participating in that way. I would also like to introduce, we have our Assistant Attorney General, Sandra Bolzer here. Thank you for helping us today. And we do have quorum, so I'll move on to agenda item number 2 is public comment. Do we have anybody sign up for public comment today? Okay. If no one signed up for public comment, we do have a pretty packed agenda, and so I'm going to move around a little bit in a different order. And so at this time, I'm going to skip down to item number 5, a report from the Parent Partnership Board, and I will turn it over to Dr. Lana Turner Addison.
Well, I did not expect that. Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Yes.
Put the best first,
I was
right?
still setting up. But anyway, can y'all see me okay? Because I was really setting up.
Your head is cut off.
That's what I thought. Okay.
There
Just
you
now
go.
setting up. I am. Okay.
That's great.
Is it still cut off?
Perfect.
You're perfect.
Am I perfect now? Okay. Sorry. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Lana Turner Addison. I serve as the co-chair for the Oklahoma Commission for Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board. Good morning, good afternoon, esteemed commissioners and all. You should have received a commission packet from us already, noting our engagements and our progress, which included an invitation. The Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board and the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness Foundation would like to invite you to come and go breakfast at the state capitol on Wednesday, which is going to be held February the 14th from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. in room 112. The Parent Partnership Board will be networking with legislators and sharing the value of partnering with parents to promote positive change in Oklahoma. So now at this time, I want to talk to you about the struggles that teenage parents face. Becoming a parent is a life-altering experience at any age. But for teenagers, the challenges can be particularly daunting. When a young person becomes a parent, they are suddenly responsible for not only themselves, but also for a new life. This responsibility brings with it its unique set of struggles that teenage parents have to navigate. I became a teen parent at the age of 17, and this period in my life changed everything for me. I had no idea what my future would be like. I come from a single parent home. I have 6 siblings. My family lived in poverty. We lived in projects, which are low-income apartments, and I had no money. But now I had to embrace adulthood with no clue of what steps to take forward. I was a pretty good student, but I began to have behavioral problems in school, difficulty maintaining my grades, attendance problems, and because I wasn't feeling well at times, I just distressed. So this led my mother to enrolling me into the Margaret Hudson School when I was 6 months pregnant, a school for pregnant teenagers and teens who had already had children. I attended this school, and I am grateful that I had the opportunity to attend the school. The classrooms were small. There was opportunity to speak with counselors, an opportunity to go to the on-site nurse as often as needed. There was a holistic approach to meeting the needs of the students at Margaret Hudson during the time that I had attended. Access to educational schools and resources, including parenting classes, career counseling, and academic supports, equips teenage parents with the tools they need to be successful in life and for their children. Did you know that teen young parents often face social stigmas and judgment as well? Society can be unforgiving towards young parents, often making assumptions about their abilities and the circumstances that led to their parenthood. This stigma can lead to feelings of isolation and shame, making it difficult for teen parents to seek the support they need. I felt ashamed and confused as a teen parent. I faced a myriad of challenges, and I had to put off pursuing my initial dreams of going to the University of Oklahoma and joining the Air Force. After my child was born, I struggled to work and go to school, but somehow I did, often working 2 jobs. I had to move to my own home at age 18. I faced difficulties paying household expenses, utilities, buying food, and I had to endure ridicule from judgmental adults and some of my family members, the nurses at the doctor's office, and even some teachers. The emotional and mental toll of being a teen parent should not be overlooked. Many young parents experience heightened stress, anxiety, and depression as they try to cope with the demands of parenthood while still being in the process of developing their own identities and coping mechanisms. Balancing the demands of parenthood with the need to earn a living and provide for a child can be overwhelming. Did you know that teen parents often face strained relationships, a lack of support, or even rejection from their own family members, further complicating their journey into fulfilling their dreams? It's important to recognize these struggles and to offer support to teen parents. They need our empathy and assistance. I needed your empathy and assistance. You can help alleviate some of the burden of balancing parental responsibility with academic and career pursuits. You can help enable young parents to focus on their aspirations without compromising their children's well-being. I see it as our collective responsibility to advocate for accessibility and expansion of services that help empower young parents to navigate through the challenges that they are facing. Teenage parents often face significant financial challenges. Many are still in school, and some have even made the decision just to quit school Mentorship, counseling, childcare, and other resources play a pivotal role in motivating teen parents to complete their education, gain meaningful employment, obtain housing, and invest in their personal growth. My journey through poverty, teen parent, and a sense of hopelessness did not define me. It has led me to earning a doctorate degree and finding fulfillment in providing service to others and my community. I can speak to you today and say that I know that there is a pathway to turning dreams into realities. For me, it was my daughters, continuing education, perseverance, resilience, access to childcare, care, babysitters, housing assistance, and faith. As I close, please recognize the profound impact that childcare and other essential services can have on the lives of young parents. By investing in their well-being, we not only uplift young parents, but we also contribute to the strength, the joy, and resilience of their child, families, and our communities. It is our responsibility to advocate for the accessibility and expansion of services, ensuring that every young parent has the opportunity to pursue their dreams and build a future filled with promise and possibilities. One of the significant ways that I am able to do this is through my service on the Oklahoma Commission for Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board, and as I share my story with other young parents. By ensuring that young parents have access to quality and meaningful education, healthcare, childcare, and emotional supports, you can make a significant positive difference in the lives of young parents and their children. I want to thank you to all commissioners for your service and all that you have done and will continue to do to help improve outcomes for children and families. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. The staff here, Isabel and Danielle, and who's all in the room, please don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation and for your words of encouragement for us. We appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, I will move on to agenda item 6, Executive Director's appointment, and I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
Second.
First and a second, any other discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Cartwell, Director Front,
Yes. Those online, do they get to vote? Nope.
okay.
And if it's easier, the commissioners can go to a different room. Okay.
We get signed for that. I don't have another room that fits. them.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird. Yes. Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire.
Yes.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Cartwell,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Schneider.
Yes.
Yeah, what's that about?
Commissioner Wilson, if you'll mute your microphone until you're called on. Thank you so much, sir.
That would be you next, just so you know. Secretary Shropshire?
Yes.
Passes. Thank you. Okay, so as we come out of executive session, Director Jacoby, I'd like to let you know that our personnel committee has done your annual evaluation. We really appreciate the self-evaluation that you presented to us. I think myself, as well as the committee and the rest of the board, was just really pleased with the outline that you gave and the work that you have been doing the past year. I think you highlighted it very, very well for us, and should be very proud of the work you're doing and the team that you're empowering here at OCCY. A couple things I want to mention. I think the movement on the Child Death Review Board and the numbers, I think that's great progress, and we're very excited about that. I think you've done a lot within the past year, especially with limited staff and limited funds. So we really appreciate your efforts, not only in that, as well as all the other things that you seem to pioneer here at OCCY while trying to stay within, a pretty tight statutory scope. So we appreciate you and thank you for your service. With that, I would like to entertain a motion to accept Director Jacoby's self-evaluation.
So moved.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron?
Yes.
CEO Bittner?
Yes.
Director Cartmill?
Yes.
Director Front?
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth?
Yes.
Commissioner Laird?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Great, thank you. Also, I understand that every year we are statutorily required to reappoint.
2 years, 2 years.
Every 2 years to reappoint Director Jacoby, and so I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No discussion, please call roll.
Who motioned?
Motion.
Okay. Commissioner Aaron?
Yes.
CEO Bittner? Sorry. Director Cartmill?
Yes.
Director Front?
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
District Director Hicks?
Yes.
District Attorney, I
It's okay.
apologize.
I've been called.
Director.
Really good. Okay.
I apologize. Director Attorney Hicks, I apologize. Okay, Commissioner Kurth?
Yes.
Commissioner Laird?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Great, thank you. I would also like to entertain a motion regarding Director Jacoby's salary.
So the Personnel Committee recommends, and I move that we make a salary adjustment to 109,708, which moves this level into the midpoint for the particular position and does reflect a raise.
First, or motion,
I'll second it.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron?
Yes.
CEO Bittner?
Yes.
Director Cartmill?
Yes.
Director Front?
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth?
Yes.
Commissioner Laird?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Great, thank you. Director Jacoby, I hope you can tell that we can't get the motion to a point out fast enough. I wasn't done talking, so thank you very much for your service. Next, we will move on to agenda item number 7. Discussion or possible vote to modify and or authorize the agency's employment policy, and I will turn it over to Director Jacoby.
Okay, we have a PowerPoint. Who's in charge of our PowerPoint stuff? Sorry, guys, we're all out of order, but we want to make sure that issues that might need some discussion as well as a vote were at the top. So, I'm gonna wait for her to pull that up. If you've been one of the lucky commissioners to be involved in one of our hirings, probably means you live somewhere close to Oklahoma City, but not always, because Commissioner Kurth has been involved in some. But we have a statutory requirement. If you will flip to the next slide whenever you get a chance, Ellen. The statute requires that the director or authorizes the director to make hires, but says at the end of the statutory line, with the advice and approval of the commission, which is you. Now, when I came to OCCY, that had not been a practice. Things are just kind of like a lot of agencies, you know, people were getting hired and that was kind of how it was rolling. I read the statute and I thought, well, we got to incorporate commissioner involvement. And so what we had done was to decide that at the end, when we got down to one or two candidates, we would bring in a commissioner, typically from the personnel committee, but not always, to be involved in that final hiring. And that's what we've been doing for several years now. We have since learned that can you flip to the next slide? So I think I went through all of that. We've had no complaints about our hiring practice from the outside. So we're not doing this because there's a grievance or someone is upset. Oh, can you back? And then we have sought to change that. And we've talked about this in this body in the past. It's a burden because when you need to hire somebody, for us to have to get, you know, people together and anyway, we've tried to involve commissioner input by having people involved in the final parts of the interview process, but we have not brought every hire to this body. We've tried to repeal that little section or delete that section statute, but so far our administrative, what we're calling a cleanup bill, has never made it far enough, or when it did make it far enough once, it got vetoed. So not for this part, but because of something else we were attempting to do. So if you'll flip to the next slide, with our advice from Ms. Balzer here, we have learned that TSET has a very similar requirement. And in 2019, they changed their practice so that their complete board blesses every hiring. That means that they don't hire but every 3 months because they meet typically quarterly. I'm just going to tell you, to me that, yeah, I see Commissioner Laird's eyes. It would be a tremendous burden on us and on you. It also, we fear, would mean that we're going to lose out on candidates because we're either going to, well, let me give you some options. Can you move to the next slide? This is what I've thought through, but I'm open to option 3, or 4 or 5, whatever you may come up with. One is we can continue to do what we're doing and attempt to change or codify our practice and administrative rules, which we've missed the deadline to do that this year. This would mean we would be doing it in the future. And or to try to delete that little clause in statute. But again, we've missed the deadline for that. This will be something we do next year. Or option number 2 is we can do something similar. Can you slip to the next slide? Who's controlling? Yeah, thank you. We can do what TSET does, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm terrified of waiting every 3 or 4 months to hire. We'll lose candidates. And so we could either try our best to schedule a special meeting when we're trying to hire. Keep in mind, we have 3 positions we're gonna be hiring for as soon as we can right now. Or we could go ahead and add meetings to the calendar, special meetings now, and cancel when we don't need to hire. But we would still have to have 8 people in this room gathered for a 10 to 15 minute exercise perhaps on approving our hires. Now I'm open to option 3, 4, or 5.
Can somebody go back to the second slide that has the actual statutory language?
The next one,
Keep
there
going
you
back
go.
one more. so maybe it's a question for you. Is there not the ability for the commission to, in a sense, decide to pass the response, to give the authority to the director through a motion and through a intentional?
There's really not a clear answer to that question. That being, there is some doctrines of law that seem to protect the appointing authority power of a commission, that being, one of them being the non-delegation doctrine, which holds that the legislature can't delegate certain activities or practices to persons other than like a state agency board. And so that's probably why you have that language with advice and approval of the commission. Now, that's been a huge problem for a lot of state agencies. I can see you guys shaking your heads. There's no way you guys can function at your agency if you had to do that. So it's probably just maybe an oversight that the language is in there, and there are some different ways that you can get around it. But the best practice, and we in our office always err on the side of caution and advising what the best practice is in accordance with the law. So that's why we worked something out with TSAT, and it worked for them at TSAT, because they had the same problem. They couldn't get a law change either. And but I get that it's not going to work for you. So we're bringing it to you today to see if you guys have any other ideas on a way to either change the statute or get around the statute that still accomplishes the goal of you guys being transparent in the public with what you do.
In line with what you're saying, Dr. Deb, I'm wondering if we were to make a motion to approve all hires made by Annette Jacoby, and you could do a time frame or something. I mean, is there a way we could meet that through one motion? Is I think what.
I'm wondering, I might throw out another alternative is, I mean, it says employ such staff with the advice and approval. It doesn't necessarily say be involved in every single hire that's made. Is there a way we can just approve an FTE plan annually and you fill as turnover occurs or something to that effect? Or we approve a general policy on the procedures that you go through?
Yes, I think you can make a difference between the staff necessary and the actual staff themselves. And if we can't do that, I would say, can she hire someone on an interim basis pending approval of the commission?
Are they already on a 1-year probationary period anyway? Or you're still, or no?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
they're already on a probationary period.
Yes, so to CEO Bittner's comment, I know at the Department of Health, at least in the days of old, the Board of Health would bless the organizational chart, and that seemed to take care of, they could hire and fire or, within that frame, but they couldn't do anything outside of that organizational chart. And so that is something we have talked about. I also, to your point, Director Cartmel, we talked about that, like, could we go ahead and continue on with this practice, knowing that we would bring the new hire positions to you guys in an open meeting for you to approve. My only concern about that is that if I were gonna leave a job, and I know this is in theory, but leave a job, and then your fear is, what if they don't approve me 4 months later, now I'm left without a job? That's my only hesitation, because I thought about that as well. It's similar, it seems like, to confirmation, but we were talking this morning, typically if you're going for a position where you're gonna get Senate confirmation, you're gonna be making bigger bucks. And I'd hate for someone to leave a position and not be gambling at that level. That just seems harsh.
So on the flip side to this, one of the reasons I probably would push more towards approving just an FTE work plan than individual people is then it puts the entire board on the hook for hiring decisions from an employment liability standpoint. So that would be my only concern too, is having individual board members voting on individual hires. But I would be certainly interested in our council's thoughts on that.
That's not an option that I've heard before, so I don't have a response to that at this point, but I can certainly look into it.
you have other options that you wanted to walk us through?
I think the next slide of option 3 was whatever you could dream up, which I believe, we have a couple options, you know, that've been thrown out here and, we can explore those. I don't know that we were expecting you to settle in comfortably on a landing spot today, and I would understand that, but, I just felt like it needed to be up for discussion because this is kind of important to us because we've got 3 positions we'd like to hurry up and hire for, but.
I like CEO Bittner's suggestion and look forward to hearing what Ms. Balzer says about that.
Okay. So it sounds like we're not wanting to take action on this at this time. Wait for further clarification.
May I ask though,
Yes.
so can we proceed with the way we are at the moment so we can get some positions? Okay, you
Yeah.
feel comfortable with that?
For sure.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda is agenda item number 8, discussion and vote, possible vote to approve the OJSO to resume inspection at OSSM, and I will turn the floor over to Mark Gaines.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to visit with you briefly about the Office of Juvenile System Oversight. As you all, many of you all are aware, one of the main charges of this agency is to provide oversight to the juvenile services system across the state. We do that largely through receipt of complaints in any form or realm of the child services system. And another component of that is to provide inspections at juvenile facilities. You have that clicker. Yes, it's right here. So as we pull that up, we are charged in statute to, again, provide overview to the children's services system. We're an independent agency. Obviously, we're not a part of DHS, Juvenile Affairs, or any other agency that provides direct services and care. And as you also may recall, let me back up, we were charged to do this work in the early 80s in response to care that being provided by facilities across the state to children in state custody and provided services to them. So we were created to be an independent oversight body for them. Originally, we were charged, in addition to responding to complaints, to do these inspections, periodic, unannounced inspections on juvenile institutions and facilities that provided services in the state. Over the years, some of that our statutory authority has changed. Here is the portion of the statute. Can't see the bottom of that. This is a statute that gives OJSO their authority to provide periodic unannounced inspections of state-operated children's institutions and facilities. Originally, this included all facilities, but in the late 2000s or about 2009, statutory authority took away our ability to go into private facilities. So that left us with just the state-operated facilities. That's another issue that we've been working to address. But as you are aware, in the early 80s, most of our facilities were state-operated. But as years have gone by, our agencies provide contracts to provide most of our care. And so we are currently, still not working. Next slide, please. These are the juvenile institutions that we are aware of that we are believe fall under OJSO's responsibility to provide inspections for. OJA's Central Oklahoma Juvenile Center, DRS's Oklahoma School for the Blind, Oklahoma School for the Deaf, DMH's Children's Recovery Center, and then JD McCarty Center, and then the Oklahoma School of Science and Math, which we're talking about today. And for the 5 at the top, we have been conducting these annual inspections. We have relationships with those entities, and they receive us and are expecting us at least annually each year for these inspections. In our review of this matter, it came up because we received a media request several weeks ago asking for our latest annual inspection for the Oklahoma School of Science and Math. So we were aware that we have not been doing these inspections, but this opportunity just gave us the opportunity to re-examine why we are not. And so in our conversations internally and talking with our legal counsel with the Attorney General's office, we do believe that the Oklahoma School of Science and Math fits within the statutory responsibilities outlined for OJSO. So that's what we're here today. But because we did not do this, have not been doing this for quite some time, we wanted to bring this information to you all, get feedback, but ultimately to inform you that we do believe it fits and we anticipate resuming that work. We have informed OSSM of our intentions. Before resuming these inspections, we will request to have a meeting with them to explain to them what our processes will be, talk about how that would line up, much like we've done with many other agencies, to inform them of what our intentions are and inform them our purposes will be to try to create as less disruption to their programming as possible when we come out. We want to make sure that it's a smooth transition, but then ultimately that it's carrying out the responsibilities that we feel that we are charged with doing. But again, wanted to bring that to this body because we have not done it for quite some time. We do believe it's an important aspect of our responsibility. Director Joe Jacoby,
I just want to add, so the time since I've been here and since Mark's been here this round, I didn't even think about that we should have been going there. We didn't think about this until the media request came up. Can you give us the latest inspection? I'm like, OSSM. So we started talking and then it came up, well, we haven't been out there since, we think the latest report was 2008. We found emails as late as 2010 and 11. There was some disagreement between the school and OCCY as to whether they fit. And it was at that time decided that OCCY would not go out there. And we just never thought about it since. And the media request has brought it back up. And now we want to add it back into the routine. So that's why we're asking. It's not like we've changed our mind. It wasn't on our mind. And so that's why we're bringing it, because we would like to do that with your approval.
And it is not in response to a specific complaint or an issue that we're aware of. It's just one of the, we're just re-examining our actions and our steps and feel like it's a responsibility that we have and that we want to just resume that. So it's not like we're going back out there to find a specific issue or respond to something in particular.
Do we have a list from 2008 to see if there's any others that have dropped off that we may be needing to look at?
No, we're pretty comfortable that we are aware of the state operated facilities. And as you're aware, if many of you aren't familiar with OSSM, they are a residential facility where they provide overnight care for during the school sessions. So because it's a residential setting, that's where we feel like it fits within the criteria that, and it is state operated funded.
And it's important to know, we would not be out there because of looking into academic performance. That's not our issue. And that was part of the, we all know how important the federal rights to protection for education are. And I think that was perhaps part of the rub in 2008 or 9 or 10. That is not what we would be looking at. We're simply looking for safety issues, our kids being cared for, feel safe, feel like they're in an environment that allows them to thrive. But we're not out there to say math is not being taught appropriately, because I don't know that we have anybody with the expertise to do anything like that, nor do we have the authority. So this would be just like all of our other inspections around safety and such.
Do you do the inspections or who does?
We have our Office of Juvenile System Oversight. We have 7 oversight inspectors that do that. And actually we have 2 staff that are designated for this work. So it would not be myself, it would be OGSO staff that we have that currently visit all these other facilities that are getting in on inspections.
Do you have like the reason or an email or whatever as to why we decided to stop in 2010? I know you said there was a rub, but is there any kind of documentation to support us to like at what point you guys decided to not?
I think there was disagreement, and Ms. Balzer, you might want to jump in here. I think there was disagreement on whether they fit within the criteria. And it became then a decision of whether it was going to be worth the legal battle, perhaps. And I think that's where it ended. Is that a fair statement?
I am fairly new to representing the Commission on Children and Youth, and so I don't have a lot of historical knowledge about what happened, and I honestly don't know how to get any historical knowledge, if there is any at our agency. So we're just gonna take an approach that we're gonna just start from this point
We have
and
not
move
been able to
on.
discover any documentation of that. We've consulted with staff and former employees that were involved and gotten their remembrances of the relationships and situations, but we've not found any documentation of those decisions.
As far as the statute goes, there's a line in there that talks about state operated children's institutions, facilities. How is that? What's the definition of that? I mean,
That would be something to look into for sure. I don't, and I am not familiar enough with the commission's law, or even if there's another law that would define that term.
we want to just read it to us.
Yeah,
Oh.
so
Good.
that's the first thing I did. So state supported, what was the question? Sorry, make sure you read the right one.
Definition of state operated children's institution and facility.
So when you look at OJS's authority, the definition I looked up was just the Children and Youth Service System, which is similar. It's health, mental health, mental health, social rehabilitative assistance, and educational services provided to children. And then the other definition on state and state-supported services to children and youth is any services provided to children and youth offered or provided by a public or private agency or organization that are supported in whole or in part through state funds or federal funds administered by the state.
So it sounds like, and this fits.
Yeah.
Within there.
Says education.
What is the statutory or regulatory side for that?
That is 10 OS 600, the definition section.
It's interesting that it doesn't, it says periodic, but it doesn't say what the period is.
I was thinking that too.
It could be once a decade, like what is that? What is periodic?
It does say in another section, at least once a year and as many times as twice, right? And that's without complaint.
The first sentence of the highlight, so not less than one, but not more than two regular.
But it doesn't say,
Say
it
what the
says
period is.
periodic, it doesn't say what the
Okay,
period
you're right.
is.
You've always took that to
Interpreting that as
mean
annual.
Any other thoughts or comments? Anyone like to make a motion on this item?
You feel like you need a motion? Because it already fits within your statute.
I am good with this discussion being on record without a motion.
Do we need to recommend yearly to meet?
If you would, that would be a nice consideration.
Maybe a motion to just the commission finds that this is OSSM falls within OCCY statutory duty. And inspection should resume as set forth in the statute.
I'll just jump out and make a motion that the commission resume inspections of OSSM in accordance with state statute.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Cartmill,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Wilson,
He's having technical difficulties.
motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Next, we will move on to agenda item number 9, discussion or possible vote to authorize OCCY to pursue legislative items to be shared with us by Marsha Johnson. I'll invite her to take the floor.
Good afternoon. So the first item on our proposed legislative agenda for your consideration deals with medical marijuana edibles. And you received this proposed legislative agenda document in your packet. It help facilitate this discussion if you can pull that up, have that at the ready. About a year ago, Director Jacoby noticed an increasing number of the child near-death reports that she receives from DHS were tied to the use of, or were tied to the ingestion of marijuana. And so she, as is her statutory authority, she formed a work group made up of various state agency representatives to kind of dig in deeper into this issue and see if they could come up with some possible solutions. Near the end of session, we approached Representative Cynthia Rowe about requesting an interim study based on what the work group had done. And she graciously agreed, and in November, that study was held in the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Controlled Substances Committee in the House. And I thought it would be helpful for you as some background to go over some of the data that was presented at that meeting. And so I've got some slides, and these are slides from various agencies that participated in the meeting. These are not my slides, but I thought you should see some of the information that was presented. This first slide is from the Oklahoma Poison Center, and it shows the number of calls that they have received the last 13 years due to pediatric marijuana exposure. You can see that in 2019, a year after the state question passed, that the number of calls to the center started to go up, and they've increased each year thereafter. And in 2022, the center reported that they received 269 marijuana-related calls. Of those that they were able to follow up on, 20 children were admitted to a hospital critical care unit, 90 were admitted to a non-critical care unit, and 56 were discharged from the emergency department. The next chart shows, thank you, Ellen, that the vast majority, or 65% of exposure calls received by the center were related to marijuana edibles. The next slide is from the State Health Department, and it shows that the highest rate of inpatient hospitalizations related to marijuana overdose was in the 0 to 4 age group. Another health department slide shows the highest rate of emergency department visits related to marijuana was in the 1 to 4 age group. The next highest being the 15 to 19-year-old group. This slide is from the pediatric medical director at Integris, and it shows the number of tests for THC that they ran on children under the age of 5 has increased from 39 in 2018, and you see there's no positive results reported there, to 82 as of October 9th of last year. So right before the interim study, that's the 82. So it's not quite a full year. And with the corresponding increase in the number of positive results. This Integris graph shows that 66% of children under 5 that they tested, who tested positive for THC, were ages 1 and 2. The slide is from the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, and it cites the statutory and administrative code requirements regarding packaging, and that packaging is to be child resistant. this is my slide. This was not a part of the interim study, but I just wanted you to see what was in the OMMA administrative code regarding packaging. And as you can see, highlighted in red, basically any packaging that could reasonably appeal to children is prohibited. And finally, these are a couple of slides from OBN showing packages of product that were seized from dispensaries in Oklahoma. Thanks, Ellen. Following the interim study, the work group met to try to come up with some recommendations for the legislature. We were kind of hoping that Representative Rowe would file a bill for us, and she graciously agreed to do that. And the work group met, and they determined, and again, this is where this document is going to come in handy because I'm not going to read all of this, but it's a little bit more specific than what I'm going to verbalize. So essentially 3 things: require that the packaging be black and white, that it contain no colors except for I think it's called the Oklahoma uniform symbol, and no images, pictures of any type, just a bland, boring package. We also require, they determined that certain warning labels needed to be adopted that were a little bit more stringent than what's already in the administrative code. Those are listed on your sheet. And finally, limiting the amount of THC per serving, 5 milligrams, and the total amount of THC per package to 100 milligrams. And Representative Rowe, like I said, she did request a bill for us, and we sent her the recommendations. And before she filed the bill, she decided to talk to Representative Scott Fetgatter. And if you're not familiar with Representative Fetgatter, he has authored the vast majority of medical marijuana legislation in the legislature, House and Senate, since the state question passed. So he's kind of been beat up, and he's learned some things, and he does have a valuable insight. And so I would have expected nothing less that she would confer with him. Anyway, so he had some concerns with the recommendations, and long story short, Annette, Mark, and I had a phone call with him where he explained the reservations that he had with the recommendations. In general, he believes that the packaging requirements hurt the businesses that are playing by the rules. It hurts those businesses the most, not the ones that are shady actors or underground, that sort of thing. He explained he thought that the warning labels were already in law. Not really. I mean, there are warning label requirements in the code, but not exactly like what is proposed here. And on the THC count, he said he would talk to some folks to see how realistic it was to maybe make some changes to that. And I need to follow up with him on that. So I don't know if he's had a chance to do that or not. But Representative Rowe did file House Bill 3335. It is a shell bill, but she filed it for the purpose of the work group's recommendation. So we kind of have a pause. I mean, not a stop, but a pause on some of these, just because honestly, if Representative Fetgatter has serious concerns about something, the odds of it going anywhere are really quite slim. Representative Provenzano is here to help back me up on that. But he's kind of become the guru on it, I guess. And so we just have to be realistic about that. But again, those are the recommendations that came from the work group, and that's what is before you now to vote on, those recommendations.
Yes.
So I definitely appreciate that you all consulted with Representative Fetgatter. As a practice, what I usually like to do as well, just from an agency goodwill standpoint, is to consult with the agency that administers or oversees it. So I'm just curious if y'all had conversations with Director Barry or.
Yeah, I can let Director Jacoby answer that in detail, but OMMA was a part of the working group. They were from the very beginning. They were a part of the interim study. And so, yes.
So are they supportive of the recommendations?
They have not expressed that they are not. So we have not talked to Director Barry directly, but as a part of the task force, they have not expressed any reservations whatsoever. They've been part of all of it.
Or they haven't seen have they seen the proposed legislation?
They've seen these recommendations. They were part of the group that formed the recommendations.
Okay, any other questions or thoughts?
Was Director Anderson involved at the end?
No, they have not. They were at the interim study, but they have not been part of the task force.
Anybody have any questions about this further? Or would anyone like to make a motion to further pursue this legislation?
One more question. I'm sorry, this may be a little outside what we're talking about here, but is this type of legislation really something that's within the scope of the commission?
It's a great
In
question.
terms of driving medical marijuana policy?
That's a great question.
I
So.
understand the need to protect kids. Please don't get me wrong.
No.
There certainly is an issue.
I'm not offended at all. So I guess because I have authority to look at issue-specific topics and create a task force, that's why I'm bringing it to you collectively. I suppose the task force could move forward with or without, but it would just make sense and make me feel more confident, I think, if you supported the idea as well. And I think that's why we're bringing it to you. But that's a great question.
I will say, I absolutely think it's something that we should be looking at. I mean, it's not gonna be a surprise that I'm gonna sit here and say, we need to do anything and everything we can to protect a child, especially when we're talking about marijuana. Won't get into whether we should have it or not, but for a child that's this age, I mean, what we're talking about is accidental exposures, and we're talking about kids that are going to the emergency room because you have parents that aren't responsible enough to pick it up and get it out of the way. If we can't take up for that kid, what kid can we take up for? That's the kind of way I feel about it. And I would be happy to make the motion that we continue to pursue legislation to restrict further the access of marijuana to children.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Jackie, okay, thank you. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner, Director Cartmell,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson. Motion pass.
And I apologize, in your, the proposed legislative agenda that was in your packet, there are a couple of other bills besides the two from Senator Garvin that are listed there. We'll get to those, but so there are 4 other pieces of legislation that we're asking you to consider individually whether you would vote to support those. And that would mean that I could, at the Capitol, work to advocate for those. And these two are not on your sheet. Senate Bill 1634 is by Senator Coleman, and it requires medical marijuana products sold by processors and growers to the dispensaries to be in prepackaged form in sizes weighing between 1/2 of 1 gram to not more than 3 ounces. And Senator Garvin has the exact same bill. It is Senate Bill 1747.
I just want to clarify something. So what Marcia's talking about is we discovered that there were bills from last year that have been carried forward. No, okay, filed, bills that have been filed that are in line with what the task force was recommending or close to it. So we just wanted to know if you would like to consider those. And they're not request bills of ours, and they may be outside of what we're talking about to some extent procedurally, but we think the content of those bills is in alignment with the task force recommendations. So we're thinking if Senator Rose or Representative Rose bill doesn't go somewhere for some reason, and these do, maybe these would be other vehicles to accomplish something that we were still wanting. And that's why we're bringing them to you, not because we requested them.
Is it covered by the previous motion though? Because the previous motion, the motion that was voted on was about
Content.
was about supporting anything that reduces marijuana access to young children.
Yes. I believe so.
I do have a quick question though. I'm unaware. Is there a limit currently on the amount of milligrams per package size? Like we have that in language, but is there a limit?
There is a
Currently?
limit, and I can't tell you what it is at the moment. But there is a limit, and it's been talked about at the task force that it's possible for you to go shop and buy the limit at one dispensary and go to another dispensary and buy the limit there, right? And then your question is, do you have too much on your person that you're not supposed to have, right? Because you've shopped multiple places. So it's hard to enforce.
Are you talking about a limit per person or are you talking about a limit per
Per
package?
package, like is there currently a limit per
There
package?
is, I'm pretty sure there is, but I can't tell you what it is at
I
the
mean,
moment.
1,000 milligrams still seems really large. Like that's what the legislation
When
has
the
on.
dose is 5? Yeah.
I mean, for a 10-pound, 20-pound, 30-pound kid, it's still a lot.
Are we okay with Marcia going ahead and presenting the rest of her?
Right,
bills
or
at this
if you
point?
just want to give us the okay to work on bills that are in line with the recommendations of the task force. And I don't know how
I think
to,
that motion already
okay,
does that.
good with
Yep.
that then.
Director Jacoby, can I just get a clarification on Senate Bill 1750? Because this has to do with physicians, recommending physicians. It doesn't deal with THC size. It's good.
Let's, yeah, let's not.
So the second item on our proposed agenda deals with state IDs for unaccompanied homeless youth. The Commission's Steering Committee on Homeless Children and Youth determined that the inability of homeless youth who were on their own, no parent, no guardian, to obtain an ID was a significant barrier to them being able to work themselves out of homelessness. And we approached Representative Lawson and Senator Stanley, and they agreed to carry House Bill 3231. And it creates a process in which a youth ages 14 to 21 can be verified as a homeless child or youth. That term is used in Title 10 in the definition section for the purpose of obtaining a real ID non-compliant identification card. And we modeled this verification process off of a Florida law that was signed by Governor DeSantis a couple of years ago. Additionally, the bill will exempt homeless youth who've been verified as being such, who are ages 14 to 17 from the parental signature requirement on the state ID form. Currently, if you're a minor, your parent or guardian has to sign for you. And secondly, the homeless youth ages 14 to 21 would be added to the category of individuals who are eligible to obtain a state ID from Service Oklahoma at no cost. Currently, individuals 65 years of age and older, and I believe 100% disabled veterans make up the group that can currently get a free ID. Nothing's free, but at no cost to them.
A question that you might know how to answer is youth, say a 16-year-old youth living in a children's shelter considered homeless youth, and would this apply to them?
I don't know how it's defined. You mentioned that there's already a definition of homeless, unaccompanied homeless youth.
Yes, and I'll just preface it, I'm not an attorney, but the definition that is in Title 10, I believe it's in section 600 as well. It excludes runaways. So a runaway, a youth in custody at DHS runs away from a foster care home, they're not included in this because runaways are excluded from the definition of homeless children and youth. So I don't believe so, Dr. Shropshire. If they're in custody. Now, if it's a shelter for homeless individuals, I think that's a different issue.
I will just say that Representative Hill is running a piece of legislation this year to fill that gap, which would require kids in DHS and OJA custody to do effectively the same thing that this bill does for this group of children. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that bill?
Maybe the same question as was before about the agency that's affected by it, especially the cost piece. What's their perspective?
Yes, Dr. Shropshire. So I've been in touch with April Kelso from Service Oklahoma, and she's seen the language. We gave her a kind of an early heads up, and she's been very receptive. And I have not heard of any issues, but she knows that we want input from them if there are concerns. I just haven't heard of any yet. We're looking, I'm sorry, I should say, the best estimate of numbers for this population, 14 to 21 that are unaccompanied homeless, is roughly 840, give or take. When you compare that to individuals 65 years of age and older and disabled veterans, it's well over 100,000. So it may be that it's really a drop in the bucket. The cost of the ID is $25, so it's fairly small.
Anybody like to make a motion to support this legislation?
Yeah, I'd move that OCCY support this legislation.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Cartmill,
Yes.
Director Front, Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire.
Yes.
Did we lose Commissioner Wilson? Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. I think we have one more.
Save the best for last in that it's very simple and straightforward. So the last item is to exempt local post adjudication review boards from the provisions of the Open Meeting Act. When they were created back in the early 90s, for some reason, they were subjected explicitly to the Open Meeting Act. Their sole purpose is to review deprived child and occasionally sometimes delinquent cases, which are confidential, 100% confidential, and make recommendations to the court. And our legal counsel has advised that the local PAR boards don't have any of the characteristics of a public body, which would subject them to the provisions of that act. So House Bill 1382 by Representative Talley and Senator Hall would exempt the local PARBs from the Open Meeting Act. It will not change the state PARB advisory committee would still be subject to open meeting.
Just to clarify, since we're in a public meeting, I wouldn't phrase it that way, that the local park boards don't have characteristics of a body that is subject to the Open Meeting Act because of what the definition of a public body is in the Open Meeting Act. But regarding the purposes of making a public body subject to the Open Meetings Act, there is really no purpose for a local park board to be subject to the Open Meeting Act.
And I'll just throw in everything they do in regards to those reviews and those cases are in executive session. So there's nothing to watch other than open a meeting, move into executive session, come out of executive session and adjourn. So.
I would move that the commission supports this legislation.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Who seconded?
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Cartmill,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Marcia, thank you so much for your report and for representing us well at the Capitol. We appreciate the hard work it takes to get ready for session. Okay, next we'll move on to agenda item number 13, Executive Director's Report. And you ready?
Yes, we've got a PowerPoint. We're gonna be super quick because I know we've got other issues to go through, but I want to highlight a couple things. Let me get ready here. Move to the next slide. I just want to say, we have a couple vacancies. Kathleen Arietta left us to go to the Department of Rehabilitative Services. We miss her, but we're happy for her because it was a good fit for her. We are also going to be hiring a position in our freestanding multidisciplinary teams. We lost Michaela Pittman. She went to go work for the National Center of Child Advocacy. It's fabulous. I'm so glad when people steal your people and they move up to a grander scale, but it's burdensome on us. So, and then I want to introduce some new people today. I left somebody off too. First, is Margaret in the room?
She's in another meeting.
Oh, darn it. Okay, Margaret Butler is our new cross systems coordinator. We stole her from the District Attorney's Council, and we are so thrilled. I'm sorry to Catherine Brewer, but we're happy to have her here. We also have a new case manager, Ellie Coase, who is a recent law grad student who's going to be working as a case manager in Child Death Review Board. And we also have a new program manager where is Liz? Is she hiding? Oh, and Liz, so I'm so excited. We have a new person over Child Death Review Board on the program manager side. So welcome, Liz Kopp, and we are pleased as punch. So thank you, thank you. So those are our personnel changes. I also want to share a bit of good news. I am so excited about this partnership. The Homeless Children and Youth Steering Committee has formed a partnership with the Oklahoma's Credit Union, and they're going to be providing unaccompanied homeless youth accounts with no parental consent. You guys, this is huge. This is huge. And I just want to tell you is I say this to my staff all the time. The answer to most problems is a person. It's just if you ask the right person, you just gotta keep asking and asking, And we are so grateful. And part of this is because of a relationship with Marcia Johnson and the president of the credit union, Lou Ann Schmeidel, and me. But all this to say is it is so hopeful, and I just feel so good because they are willing to assist these kids. So you guys, if you're not banking or doing anything at the credit union, yay, credit union. I'm just gonna give them a plug. I'm just so happy about this. So we'll keep you posted about how this moves forward, but we're excited about this. Also, I want to give a shout out to the Office of Planning and Coordination and get this on your calendar. The Fatherhood Summit, we did the first one last year. grabbing our second one. It will be in Tulsa again on March 14th. We appreciate now this year, the support of Department of Human Services has kicked in some money. I hear the governor's coming back. We've got a really great keynote. So if you have any interest, this is for dads, people serving dads, someone who knows a dad. I mean, anybody can go, right? It will be amazing. So please come to that. And then next slide. I also just want to give a shout out. I know you've heard from our parent partnership board member, Wywana. She is fabulous. She's being snatched up and now utilized at a national level. And I just can't tell you, these parents are on fire. They're on fire. And I just want to celebrate their voice. They're lending their voice wherever they can. So yay, Wywana. Okay, next slide. I also want to give a shout out to our PARB coordinator in Tulsa. She's doing some really innovative things. She's hosting coffee chats to recruit members as well as find out what's going on in their areas of expertise and their kind of lane. So she's had one with Indian child welfare workers as well as DHS. And I just want to applaud that collaboration because it's important. It's just really great when you know someone well enough that you can have hard discussions. And when you know them like that, then you can go and be honest. And I think Milena just does a great job at that, at trying to be a partner. This is going to sound crazy. So years ago, when I was at the health department, CATSI, the Child Abuse Training and Coordination Council, was under my purview. At the time, under Governor Fallon, the idea was to collapse all boards and commissions as much as possible. I was told this was killed off. It disappeared. I never looked at the statute. I came over here. We have learned that statute didn't die. They just substituted it when they moved the freestanding multidisciplinary teams. And they just took out the words health department and put in OCCY. That happened years ago. So we're going to reconstitute it and we're going to give that support back to the teams, the freestanding multidisciplinary teams. So don't be surprised if I knock on your door and say, hey, you don't know this, but we need a designee for CATSI. So after this meeting, this is one of my top tasks to do is to get that group up and running. So surprise to all of us. Don't know what you don't know when you're not digging through statutes, but it's there and we're going to bring it back. So I wanted you to know about that. Also, good news. You guys, CDRB, the Child Death Review Board, is doing such great things. They have gotten a grant for $225,000 from the National Center to do special work in sudden infant death and as well as this is a new term to me, sudden death in the young. And they're going to be looking at those cases in a very, very specific way. And they were selected because of two reasons, because of the disparities we see in South Oklahoma, the state in this regard, as well as just the turnaround in our own team. So I want to applaud them. This is huge. They're going to, the National Center is paying for staff to go to Atlanta to receive special training. This is like 9 days. I'm so excited. So please, you guys, thank them. They're doing great things. Next slide. I just wanted to show you those numbers, put it in the record for the public. Those numbers are changing and we're very happy. It doesn't mean that it's going to turn overnight because the boards have to actually do the reviews, not the staff, but it's the staff and having the capability and then manpower to actually prep those cases makes a big difference. Next slide. And because of that grant, I want to tell you, we're going to work 2022 deaths first. That's what they need, and that's what we are going to do. So we're going to start working backwards. So, we're always saying we're going to catch up on the backlog. We're going to go backwards now because what happened in 2018, if I got 5 cases still out there, if I tell everyone to wear, it'll fix it if everyone wears purple t-shirts now. The world has changed since 2018. So we're going to work backwards. So I want you to know that. So if you hear that, I said it in both of the hearings, the Senate hearing and at the House budget hearing meeting. So it's on record. And we're going to be redoing our annual reports. Our annual reports by statute are supposed to be a calendar year. There's been an interpretation by the agency for many years to put them out for the year that the case was reviewed, not the year of death. And I think that's super frustrating and confusing. We're not gonna do that anymore. So we're gonna close out years and we're going to put years together, years of the deaths by years together, so we can look at trends. That was a huge problem. So we're gonna change that. So you're gonna see some revised reports this year. And it's gonna be a heavy lift, but we need to do it because it's the only way to make sense of it. So we're gonna do that. So that'll be coming. And then that's my report. So happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Any questions for Director Jacoby? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we'll move back to agenda item number 3, review of the minutes from November 3rd commission meeting. I know that we received this packet yesterday or today with the minutes, and I think there was just a mistake with that. And so I understand if anybody would like to table, or if you have had time to review and want to make a motion, we'll entertain that as well.
I don't see any adjustments. I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner. Yes. Director Cartmill,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Abstain.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird.
Minutes.
Minute vote.
Yes. Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Abstain.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next, I'll move on to agenda item number 4, discussion and possible vote to approve the finance report. And with that, I will turn it over to Mahbub Hack, our business manager. Thank you.
Must have exited out.
Sorry, I've moved everything around. I've made it hard for you all.
Thank you very much. I'm Mahbub, business manager for the OCCY. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you today the financial report that reflects the OCCY's fiscal status at the end of 2 quarters. This report mainly highlights the budget allocations and its utilization. So let's navigate to the numbers more quick that shape our OCCY's financial landscape. For the financial year 2024, the total allocations were 5.4 million. And if we turn to the year-to-date budget allocation, it becomes 2.7 million. And at the end of 2 quarters, ended on December 31st, the utilization remained 2.7 million. That paints absolutely perfect picture, indicating a well-balanced scenario. Halfway through the financial year, we are at 50% utilization, total utilization. If you consider the total budget, and if you consider related to the year-to-date budget, it's almost 100%. So we are on the perfect scenario. There are the further analysis for in different views. It's the summary with the personal account codes, main account codes. So we have both analyzed with the total budget and year-to-date budget, and it is the actual account codes with the percentages. This is the picture. If you see overall, almost we are on the track with the year-to-date allocations. If you see it with the further detail account heads, the picture is like this. And the analysis by each department, the utilization against each department, we can have a look on this.
We're going to pause a moment. We're not sharing the screen with the people online. Can we sorry, interrupt?
Go back to the Zoom. Go click on the Zoom at the bottom.
There we go. Sorry.
This is the analysis by the departments, and if we see the orange graph almost matching but by the each department, it's almost on the track with the year-to-date budget. Slightly we are above in the department MDTs. That is because we disperse them in annual budget one time in a year. So we already dispersed them the budget for the this financial year. This is our cash balance report. We have $735 in our cash balance with the different class fund. Appropriations is for 193 and 194, and 200 is for the other grant funds. These all reports are basically based on the PeopleSoft generated financial report that are already included in the packet. These are some of the highlights on the financial activities. We have conducted 3 hearing sessions, attended 3 hearing sessions with for the budget 2025 with the House, Senate, and budget committees, and submitted the request for the increase in appropriation by the amount $248,000 for the upcoming budget year 2025. And as we all know that 94% of our total appropriations goes to the payroll cost. We rely heavily on the other financing sources, other grant funds, and especially for the federal 4E grant that plays a crucial role. So we have submitted the invoices for the last 2 quarters for the reimbursement, and we are eagerly awaiting for the reimbursement for the 4E invoices. And we have dispersed funds to the 38 MDT teams for the 24 fiscal year 2024. And considering the budget utilization trends, we are maintaining alignment with the current year's budget and perfectly on the trend. We discuss the financial reports regularly with our OMES colleagues to making sure that everything is on track. And routine invoicing from suppliers, time is on, payments are on the track and progressing timely. So that is the end of my report. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have questions? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Hartnell,
Yes.
Director Front. Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yep.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Perth, Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Secretary Shropshire.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation. Great job. Next on the agenda, let's move to agenda item number 10, presentation on standards for playgrounds which ensure access for those with Disabilities Act.
I'm Representative Melissa Provenzano, and before I did this job, I was a middle school principal, and so I was just been in some high school, but middle schoolers they can't get out of their own way, and it's just, they're the best. Listening to you all, my heart is full right now, so I just want to thank you for separate and apart from what we're about to say. I'm just jazzed to see the work that this body is doing. So this past year, Tulsa opened their first fully inclusive public playground in our state. Fully inclusive meaning everyone, regardless of ability, and can access and use this equipment. It was a huge deal. It was covered in the news. It was covered nationally. There are very few playgrounds like this. This woman right here is the reason this has happened, but we'll get to her in just a moment. So people have come from Tulsa, but surrounding areas to be able to use this facility. We wanted just to tell you a little bit about it. And if you could forward to the video, that would be great. There's a clip that a local reporter did that describes it to a T, and I just wanted you to take 2 minutes to watch it if that's possible. Where is the video? Oh, she did open it outside the top.
Yeah, it's up, yeah. Jared, do you have that?
It should be in Edge. Yeah, the thing up top.
Okay, apologies if there's an ad. But if you'll just. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
So how does something like that happen? Well, enter Lauren Poole, and that's how this happens. And I'm gonna turn it over to her to kind of like idea to inception, to talk for a few minutes. Lauren.
Like Representative Provenzano said, my name is Lauren Poole. I have 4 kiddos. One is disabled. She has cerebral palsy and has minimal gross motor ability. She uses a wheelchair, pictured there. A few years ago, I started noticing that when we were at the park, there wasn't going to be a lot for Lincoln to do as she got bigger. She was quickly outgrowing the baby swings. She was often getting stuck when I would pick her out of them. If you have kids with shoes on, you know about that. I wondered what we would do when the day came that she could no longer swing at the park because that's her favorite thing to do. I started doing research on what a disability-friendly park looks like, and there are just not a lot of examples out there. So I created a vision board and I had lunch with Mayor Bynum, and we agreed that this was a huge gap in the community that needed to be met. And so luckily, a private donor from our community gave us $1 million and said, build a park. So we started planning this, at the end of 2020. We broke ground in September 2022 and opened this past September. I think that the impact community-wide was not something, I knew it was going to make a big impact. I just didn't realize the amount of adults that would also utilize the playground. Caregivers, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Disability is a community that any of us can join at any minute. And just seeing adults be able to play with whatever child they were there supervising was, it was really neat. I think it made a big impact community-wide to be able to see that. I'm a big believer that people don't know what they don't know. I did not realize what a gap our community has in terms of inclusivity until my disabled daughter was probably 3 years old. But now I'm on a journey to make sure that everybody knows that the gaps are there. And as a society, we really need to do a better job of closing those gaps. So I'm going to let Representative Provenzano tell you a little bit about how we're trying to change the gap in the way play happens in the community.
Thank you, Lauren. So when they started digging into how much something like that costs, that's the question that everyone is thinking right now. It's the same. It's almost exactly the same, except for the footing. The stuff
The
you walk on.
grounding is
Yeah.
more expensive, a lot
So-
more expensive than mulch.
But that's kind of it. But
yeah.
so mulch is ADA compliant, but if you've ever had to push a wheelchair across mulch, you know that it's not. And so, but all of the toys that you see, it's the same price. So we can do this. And so I first met Lauren at the opening of this park. Coolest thing on the planet. And they brought a ton of kids to play on the equipment of all different ability levels. And I said, so where do we go from here? And she's like, statewide. I'm like, oh, okay. So, and that's where we've gone. So we do have a bill that I hope that you will take under consideration. I just wanted to talk to you about it today and then submit it to Marcia for consideration the next time you all meet. That says, moving forward, anything new that we put in will be fully inclusive. You know, moving forward, anything that we put in can be walked upon and accessed. If you've had a cane, you can walk across and get to equipment like this, no matter what your ability is. And it's a pretty short and sweet and simple bill. Our next conversation will be with PSET because they have a lot of grants for things like this. And so we'll be reaching out, but we just wanted to talk to you today and share this with you and know it's in the pipeline. And we recognize marathons versus sprints, and that's okay. But we can do this. So anyway, I'm open to questions, I believe, as is Lauren, if you have any.
Hi, I'm Melinda Front. I'm the Director of Department of Rehabilitation Services. We have the School for the Deaf and the School for the Blind. Good to see you, Representative. And we have made our playgrounds at our two schools a lot more fully accessible. This is awesome. I'm from Northeast Oklahoma originally, and I mean, count us in. DRS is definitely going to support you all on this. I was curious about how, in this process, how did you get in contact with the right people to make it ADA accessible and to know all the different terrain and all of that? Because we've had those challenges at our schools for the playground itself, because even in construction today, you know, some will say they understand ADA specs, but they really don't. And we do have an ADA coordinator that is constantly having to educate construction, maintenance, and all over the state. And I would love to put him in touch with you about this so that he could add it to his resource list.
Representative Provenzano whispered sweat equity, and that's pretty accurate. We had about a 6-month interview process from start to finish of just interviewing every playground company available.
And that's in and out of state?
Yes. Some said we are great at ADA compliance and they completely missed the mark.
Right.
So then we whittled it down to about 3 playground companies and then went with who has the most kind of over the top equipment that nobody else is going to have. They did Patrick Mahomes Playground in Kansas City.
Wow.
It was just a lot of interviewing and asking the right questions. We had a panel of, I think, 10 people, representatives from the foundation that donated money, from the city. I think I was the only kind of non-official person, but they also employed someone who is disabled and she does a lot of the designs. So I think that when you're trying to make something inclusive or more accessible, you talk to someone who's directly impacted.
That's what I was going to ask about who your testers were. Was it the kids themselves? Did your daughter?
We actually didn't test any of the equipment beforehand.
Okay.
I mean, we had one piece of equipment that us adults got onto and
Understood.
And it's such a far cry from the big swing, you know, that is in every place, which is great, but like this is everyone.
And those swings are actually not considered as inclusive as you might think that they are.
Correct.
Yes, they're accessible. You can wheel a wheelchair on them. That's great. You'll notice that a lot of times they're far separated from any other piece of equipment because they're so heavy. They're swinging a big wheelchair. That's why we were very intentional with incorporating the wheelchair friendly toys into the middle of the playground. And the blue path all around like leads to everything that is wheelchair friendly, which is basically the entire playground.
It's incredible what an audacious goal you had, and this is just life-changing. If we can model the way in other states, wouldn't that be, you know, because I mean, yeah, this is just amazing. I applaud the work that went into it, and yeah.
West Virginia just opened theirs this week. They have one in their state as well. And there's very little to none oversight or regulation at state level about playgrounds. Who knew? But
Playgrounds are
hopefully it's starting.
included in ADA. The mark that ADA sets for playgrounds and parks is mulch, so.
Right.
Any other questions?
I am the parent of a child, 30-year-old child, and I'm so excited to see this. I'm just curious where your next direction is headed.
West. That would be nice. So I think that the limiting factor in in the minds of a lot of cities is money. And so if we can, we did talk to OML already and just said, I know you have that 100-year-old playground that's sitting out there that hasn't been touched in a long time. But can we just say, when you do, someday you will, can we do this? And they're okay with that language.
And Mayor Bynum did reach out to me after opening and said that a lot of municipalities have reached out to Tulsa and asked, how do we do this? How did you get the process started? So it's something that other towns are interested in. People don't know what they don't know. And so I think if we set the precedent in law stating this is what it needs to be, this is what it needs to look like, then it's easier for them.
I believe that the link is included or the law is included in your packet, so you can reach out to either one of us with questions, expert, gopher. So.
And you said it's the ground cover that's so expensive.
It is.
Like that needs to be the solution. It's how you solve for that.
Right.
If the equipment is basically the same cost, there's a way to figure out how you
Because
solve
it's,
for that.
correct me if I'm wrong, because the way I understand it at our schools, if you fall on it, it's still cushion proof and is it probably Patrick Mahomes, he is a football player and some of their turfs that they play on are very much similar so that it's less impact to your body if you fall on it. Is that?
Yes. And this turf is actually, does not have the cancer causing rubbers, recycled tires that is
all of our
big and
stadiums
then,
have.
yeah. That was really important to us. Somehow they have like sand compounds that fill the turf instead of recycled tires. So that's another big point of concern is not using the cancer causing or cancer assuming chemicals that like football turf uses.
Thank you for your passion and your heart. My mind goes immediately to childcare centers, so not only cities.
Yes.
So there's a lot of regulation upon what we can have at childcare centers. I own one, but the funding to be able to get a playground like this is very difficult. But how amazing would that be if our kids that spend 12 hours at daycare also have access to this?
We are trying to compile a list of playground grants on a state and national level to be able to present to municipalities. Because we're targeting public parks and public schools, because the kids should be able to be dropped off at school and their parents know that they're included.
Also,
I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
have you had any conversations with Kaboom? Kaboom is a nationwide nonprofit that helps build community-built playgrounds.
Okay.
I can see them being all over this.
We could provide this to cities to give them some, okay, we can do this. Here's our budget for building a playground. And here's if the footing or the travel surface costs a little bit more, we can apply for a grant. And TSET does the same thing locally here in state. So that's our first stop. But Christopher Reeves has a huge grant. They're all over the place. And so this is doable. Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. Great job. Okay, next is agenda item number 11, a presentation on supporting the life course trajectory of pregnant and parenting teens. And I will invite up Dr. Carla Fennell, sorry.
You're fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Commission and Director Jacoby. Would you like me to go through this a little quicker since we're close to the end of your meeting time?
Yeah, we're almost finished. We're in good shape.
We're in good shape. Okay.
Thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you. First off, let me introduce you, if you don't mind, to some of the people with me today briefly. So I have 3 students that work on this project from OU, the University of Oklahoma, Mackenzie Colbeck, Sierra Salsa, and Abby Peters, and they all work on this project with me. I also have Anika Sterling with me as well. And oh, there she is. And she's available to answer any questions you might have. And then we also have our partner, Oklahoma City County Health Department. And Anika is the Director of Health Services for Oklahoma City Public Schools. So let me give you a little context about how this sort of started. Oklahoma City Public Schools maintains a case management program for their expecting and parenting youth. Right now, they have 3 parent team coordinators that cover 11 high schools and several middle schools. Variety Care and Oklahoma City County Health Department for several years, more than my history knows, have supported the school system with concrete supports for the youth, as well as providing technical assistance. OU became involved with the program in the spring of 21. First, we tried to assess and understand how their program operated. And then during the academic year 22-23, we did a comprehensive mixed method study to understand the stressors and tangible needs of the teens and how we might best support them. There was a lot of unmet need, and so we pulled together a coalition of community partners to work with us in the school to strengthen the program. And so, commissioners, I'd like you to know that several of your agencies are serving on the committee. Oklahoma OCCY has Caitlin Merritt on it, who's been a tremendous ally and resource for us. The Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, Oklahoma Department of Health and Human Services. Let's see, make sure I don't miss anyone. And then, of course, Oklahoma City County Health Department is continuing to serve on the coalition as well. So teen birth rates are very high in Oklahoma. They are declining nationally, and they are declining in Oklahoma. Next slide, please. So, but we continue to have a teen birth rate in Oklahoma that's almost twice that of the national average. And it's higher in Oklahoma County than it is the state as the whole. So, as all of you know, teen births come with a huge societal cost for the entire society, but also the youth and the infants that will be born to them. We know that they'll have worse lifetime outcomes compared to children born to adults. Next slide. So the thing about social determinants of health, they both increase the risk of becoming pregnant, and then they also are having an early pregnancy, but they also then increase the risk of having a poor outcome. So living in poverty, as well as the social vulnerability index, predicts whether or not you're likely to become a teen pregnant, a teen parent. Those risks only increase if you've experienced adverse childhood events, particularly sexual and physical violence. So in short, these youth are often facing adversity before they become teen parents. So then these same risk factors are only going to accelerate and worsen the life trajectory for them. I'd also like to say, Dr. Addison did a fabulous job of describing the stress in context. In fact, I think she'll do better than I will with all my little research. So we know that maternal stress is associated with adverse health outcomes for mothers and their infants. And really, we know that stress affects the well-being and development of children. It begins in utero, but it continues during those early first years of life. So a study that's very exciting to me is one of the first done in the United States. They gave low-income mothers a small monthly unconditional supplement and then followed them to see what was going to be the impact for both the mothers and the infants. It's called Babies First, and they have a terrific website if you're interested. So what they found is significant improvement in the cognitive development of the infants in all of the areas that matter, their language skills, cognitive skills, social and emotional learning. They also found lower maternal stress among the mothers. So we think this research is very exciting. It has really important implications for parenting youth. So kind of focusing on youth and the issues that Dr. Addison spoke to is that these youth have all the stressors of becoming a parent. But in addition to that, they have to rapidly transition to adulthood. They're at very high risk of intimate partner violence. Becoming a teen parent is very stigmatized, and they are at a high risk of becoming homeless and separated from their families. They have a strong need for tangible support and financial support. And in Oklahoma County, 3 out of 5 teen parents will not graduate from high school. They are also at a very high risk of a rapid subsequent pregnancy. So we conducted this study. We did an online survey with 121 youth. We focused on youth that were pregnant or had recently delivered their baby. So about 80% of those who participated in the study were pregnant. They were about 17 on average. So what we explored was unmet social needs and stress. So next slide. So what we found is that almost 1 out of 5 were insecurely housed. 1 out of 3 did not feel safe where they lived, and they often lived in crowded household conditions. These are the environments in which these youth will struggle to fulfill the dual roles of parenting and completing school. This is the environment in which these infants will be born. Next slide, please. We also found that over half had at least one basic outstanding need in the last 30 days. Most common was food insecurity, clothing, and being able to pay a bill. So we looked to see if those that had one need had multiple needs, and 83% had multiple needs. Now, in terms of it understanding stress, and we know stress affects mental health and well-being, having more unmet needs has a compounded and synergistic relationship with stress.
We're on the wrong slide. Let me go back one. That's, yeah, transportation, perfect. So transportation barriers were common. Almost 2/3 had experienced transportation barriers in the last 30 days. The most common transportation barrier is to school. And then to work. And of course, these are the destinations they need to go to most often. They describe moderate levels of pregnancy-related stress. Of most concern to them was how are they going to take care of their babies, as well as giving birth. We did find from the qualitative interviews that they found that the medical providers often, they felt, spoke over their head, or if their parents went with them, made decisions and communicated with the parent and not the youth. On the next slide, they also had moderate levels of perceived stress, the highest being feeling nervous and stressed, or angered because things are outside of their control. We did find a significant association between unmet tangible needs
and stress, including pregnancy stress. Transportation barriers were only associated with pregnancy-related stress. So from the qualitative interviews, what we heard was that this pregnancy was a time of loss and change. They lost connections to schools that they were attached to. They were no longer able to participate in extracurricular activities. Some felt like their lives were ruined, that they had dreams they would no longer ever be able to realize. They also lost connections with their friends as their life shifted into a completely different space. But they did see and appreciate that they had to transition to adulthood. I have responsibilities, my child. For those youth that were engaged in very high-risk activities, the child gave them a reason to live. I would be dead. My pregnancy is a blessing. I want to save myself now. They had aspirations of going to college. For some of them, they moderated those aspirations. You know, now it seemed maybe the National Guard might be a potential career path, or going to Metro Tech. But they were all committed to breaking the cycle, to being a better parent than perhaps their parent had been to them. So in terms of academic persistence, we found things like having on-site childcare, which Oklahoma City Public Schools does provide at several locations, was a protective factor. It reduced stress. They had a reliable place they can leave their baby while they attend school. Being overcommitted and struggling interfered with academic persistence. So for example, outside obligations, whether one had a premature baby and all of the doctor's appointments that she needed to attend with the infant caused her to miss a lot of school, and then she fell behind. Housing instability, a sudden unexpected move and trying to get resettled, threw the youth behind in school, and now they didn't know how they were going to get hurt. So how we're approaching this work is that adversity can become an opportunity. It's a very defined population. It is not a monolithic group. They have a varying range of risk. Some have strong family support. Some become completely separated from their families. So there's very much a continuum of what's happening. But the young people are highly motivated to care for their children and establish a pathway for themselves for adulthood. So as a social scientist, I know that this life transition can be when we are able to commit to and stick to a path. So we also know from research that school-based case management programs can be effective at improving self-sufficiency. And then, of course, we are drawing from the resources and the evidence that's been established by the Babies First study, and that is that we can have an intergenerational impact by looking at this as a way to reduce poverty and looking at poverty reduction programs as a possible solution. Next. So we do have a few things that are in their early stages that we've been able to agree upon and move forward. Oklahoma DHS has agreed to utilize family coaches to enroll pregnant and parenting youth into eligible safety net programs and to provide coaching for them to help plan for their future. So we did ask them in our survey what safety net programs that they were participating in. That participation was very low, notwithstanding the clear and obvious need for participation in things like SNAP. The youth can also be eligible for TANF, and none were participating in TANF. Transportation, Oklahoma City Public Schools is arranged vans to pick up the parents and their infants to take them to school if they're utilizing the on-site daycare. And so they weren't able to put their children on the buses because of child seats. Oklahoma City Public Schools is also began to provide homebound instruction while the youth are on maternity leave. We did examine the academic records and we observed that the highest chance that they would withdraw from school was following birth of the infant. So these are things that are evolving that we're working on that aren't quite yet put together, although there's pieces and components for all of them. Well, maybe not all of them, but one is a work study program. They spoke to us about working in service-related jobs, not having transportation to make it home at night, standing on the curb, calling people. Not a great situation, and it doesn't provide any professional development for them. So OCCY has taken the lead and partnering with Oklahoma City Public Schools to develop a program that would be hopefully just a pilot of what others could be. And that is the youth could work toward a child development associate degree. They could do those study hours at work, and then a partnering daycare could provide a subsidized internship for them while they complete the work hours. We think there's endless opportunities for this, whether it's cosmetology or other career paths that they could pursue with support and coordination from the case management program. We're looking at group education that can be embedded in the school system on childbirth, parenting, safe sleep, other things to improve their parenting skills and reduce their stress associated with pregnancy. And then one of our goals is to increase the staffing dedicated to this program. Ideally, the caseload would be 1 to 10. Right now, it's 1 to 30. And then we, of course, need to strengthen the linkages with community partners because the school can't meet all of these. And our community partners both have expertise and resources that could be helpful to these youth. So any questions, thoughts?
What's the timeline of this partnership that you have with OKCPS?
So right now, we've made a formal commitment to work with them through the end of the school year, through June, but we're willing to stay involved and engaged with them for at least another year. But we don't have dedicated funding for this project. It's a service project at this point.
Were any of the young mothers involved in home visiting programs?
Yes. So, and that's a tremendous, so Oklahoma City Public Schools does have a relationship with the Children's First program managed by Oklahoma City County Health Department. And so they have been referring youth to those home visiting programs. Parent Promise, as part of the coalition, has approached us. And so we hope to be able to extend and involve them as well.
Great. Any other questions?
Is Sunbeam a part of the coalition?
Sunbeam is not officially a part of the coalition, but they are working with Caitlin on the
workforce piece,
on the
perhaps?
workforce.
Awesome.
Piece. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and several of the youth in the interviews actually expressed an interest in working in child development centers. I mean, that's not what they called them, but
Yes.
you know. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so I think there's real opportunity there.
Thank you so much for presenting to us today and bearing with us. And this is a little wait time for you, so thank you.
Y'all had a busy agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, we did. We did, but we appreciate your patience with us.
No, thank
for your
you for
presentation.
having.
Thanks to your team.
Okay, next on the agenda is agenda item number 12, presentation update regarding RSV cases in Oklahoma. And I will welcome up Kendra Doherty.
Well, thanks for having me today. So I'm the director for the Infectious Disease Prevention and Response. And one of the functions that we serve is to do year-round respiratory surveillance. And so since COVID, that now includes COVID, flu, and RSV. I just wanted to start by giving you just kind of a very brief overview of how we conduct our surveillance, because it's different than what we do for most of our other diseases. So with respiratory surveillance, the kind of the bulk of what we are looking at is what I call sentinel surveillance. And that is allowing us to not have this extensive reporting burden on all healthcare providers. So we can kind of ask for help from volunteers across the state. So we're only gathering data from this small subset of healthcare providers and laboratories who are volunteering to submit data to us. And so we also try to recruit these volunteers so that we're getting a geographic representation of our data. And we have two types of sentinel sites. We have healthcare providers, and those individuals are submitting influenza-like illness data to us, which is something that is collected nationally, as well as laboratory testing data. And then we also, one of the benefits of COVID was that we really increased our ability to collect electronic lab results from facilities. And so it's great because it's an automated, not a manual or a time-intensive process. And so we're able to collect laboratory data from laboratories as well. And then these individuals also submit a subset of their influenza and COVID specimens to our public health laboratory for either sequencing or subtyping so that we can kind of understand what types of infections are circulating. So the reportable piece of our surveillance is our hospitalization and death reporting for influenza and hospitalization reporting for COVID. And then we also, within the last couple of years, have started using wastewater surveillance, which is, I think, just a really great addition to what we're doing because it continues on this continuum of, these asymptomatic or non-medically attended instances all the way up to our hospitalizations and deaths. So, and down in the bottom of the slide, you can kind of see for each of the infections, the type of data that we have available to us. Next slide. And I just wanted to give you a visual representation so that you can see that we do really have data that we're collecting from across the state. And we're currently using HHS regions, kind of thinking that if we break it up like this, then this is really allows us to kind of see what potential impact it could have to those healthcare systems. Next slide. So I wanted to highlight before I get into the data part of my presentation, this season we launched a new interactive tool for all of our respiratory surveillance. And to navigate to this, you can go to the homepage for the State Health Department and then advance one more. And then down kind of in the picture, in the picture portion of it, there'll be the little viral view link, and it'll take you to a page on the this image on the right. And we have dashboards for each of the infections. So you can see what you are interested in. Next slide. Next slide. We'll skip over the background. So say you go to the RSV dashboard. This is what it would look like when you first get there. And it's going to give you a quick snapshot overview of where we're at on the state percent positivity baseline, whether it's above or below baseline. So 10% is where we consider activity really is suggestive of community spread. Below that, there's less suggestion that it's spreading in the community. So I made these slides on Monday, and we're already, our new data for last week has been published now as of yesterday. So if you looked at viral view, we are now below our state percent positivity baseline. And that's the first time that we've been below for many, many weeks. So, and then over on the left of the map, you can kind of navigate to several graphs about percent positivity, and we break that down by region of the state, as well as you can have comparisons to historical activity. That's something that we were getting questions on, is what is this season compared to last season? And so we've allowed you some visuals on that. And then we also have our wastewater data. Next slide. So the graph on the left is that historical graph, and I don't know, it's not showing up very good in the back, but there's kind of a darker gray band that gives you kind of the minimum and the upper levels of what we would have seen for a historical data point for those particular weeks, and then kind of the average percent positivity that we would expect. So that you can see we were really very normal, if you can say that there is a normality with RSV up until just a couple weeks ago, and then we've taken like a pretty significant dive down, which I'm not complaining about. And then over on the right, you also have, this is something that we actually get requested from healthcare providers a lot, especially if they're trying to decide if they want to start using immune globulin to treat high risk or prevent infection of RSV in those high risk infants and children. And so they'll use that same percent positivity marker of that 10% to determine kind of when RSV season has started for their area and when it has kind of gone away. So next slide. And this is just, I thought, a pretty good representation of kind of nationally what's going on. This isn't actually percent positivity. This is their hospitalization trends nationally. If you'll advance just one. So the kind of dark red line is where we were for this season. Advance again. And the dark green line is where we were for last season. So I know that we all kind of felt it last season. You probably heard rumblings about how it was a really early season and it was pretty severe, and there was a lot of concerns about children being hospitalized. This season has been much more on track, like you saw on the previous slide, with kind of following those normal seasonal trends, and then the severity has been much lower. Next slide. And I know that I was asked to give an update on RSV, but I feel like it's really important now that we have 3 pathogens that are circulating potentially around the same time, that the impact of one, is going to be impacted by the timing of these other ones as well. And so this is Oklahoma data again. The top one is percent positivity for our 3 main pathogens. And you can see that RSV kind of climbed. COVID has been very odd. I don't know what's really going on with it. We had this, peak in late August, early September when schools went back in, it decreased till October. And then it's just been on this kind of never ending slow increase, but very nicely seeing some trends down. Influenza didn't really kind of got off to a late start with it, but we're now kind of back up where we would normally expect to see it, and potentially even just a little bit higher for this time of year. RSV seems to be coming down. As far as hospitalizations, we don't have RSV hospitalization data for Oklahoma. It's kind of based on just reports or concerns that we're hearing from the medical community that we're kind of monitoring that. But for COVID and flu, you can see, COVID's definitely coming down. Flu, that small decrease is probably just a reporting delay. Flu is still definitely very increasing. So, luckily we're not seeing huge increases in both of those at the same time. Next slide. And so something that was kind of new this season is CDC has kind of put a Centers for Disease Control has put a big push on forecasting, probably because of the pandemic. But they actually have put out quite a few models for each of the pathogens, each of the 3 main pathogens, and then also kind of the respiratory season now overall. And so they, at the beginning of the season, they were modeling that our number of severe cases, hospitalizations and things would be very similar to what it was last season. But the impact to the healthcare system really would be dependent upon that timing for those infections. So I threw up an image of 2 different influenza predictions just for fun. The one on the left, so we're also seeing H1N1 right now as the predominant influenza A strain. And so I went ahead and included influenza A, H1N1 predictions. The one on the left is if we had what they're calling business as usual vaccine coverage. And the one on the right is for low vaccine coverage. So you can see kind of the predictions on the peaks being higher on the right. Next slide. And so something else I wanted to cover, we probably all know availability and age groups for influenza vaccine, but there are lots of options available for 6 months and older. And there's the high dose for 65 and older. For COVID vaccines, same six months and older. The new thing this season was there are RSV vaccines now available for adults age 60 and older. And there's 2 different vaccine options. Just recently, they also came out with the recommendation for expecting mothers 32 to 36 weeks if they are in those weeks between September and January. And then we also have the RSV IG that is available for high-risk infants and children. Next slide. So just in summary, the health department does monitor kind of winter respiratory season for the 3 main pathogens. And we have OK Viral View, which is easy to navigate to, and it's published every Thursday morning. And we've got new predictive models that can help people kind of monitor and make health decisions for their families, and lots of new vaccine options, and hope to see more of those coming for RSV in the future. And just a plug to, practice your good hand hygiene and your respiratory hygiene, and stay home when you're sick. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 14, announcements. Do these senators have announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 15, sorry. Agenda item 15, chairperson comments. I don't have anything else to say other than that. Thank you so much for putting together these agendas each month or each meeting. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to line all that up. And we just, again, to echo what we said earlier, we really appreciate all you're doing here. And with that, move on to the last agenda item, and I will call this adjourned.